engagements, I don't necessarily get a chance to come back a lot. Maybe it's me, I'm not sure. But the what I'm going to try, but it's an amazing and unique opportunity not only to kick off this conference, but to also be able to reflect on where we were a year ago and where we were today. And I remember what I said, and some of you, many of you may have remembered me being here a year ago. But what I'm going to try to do in my talk today is to try to say, okay, what's happened over the past year in terms of, in my role in terms of pandemic innovation and preparing for the next pandemic. But I want us to use preparing for the next pandemic and most of my comments, if you will, as a microcosm or a specific application of what we're trying to do very broadly in human health. And so we can therefore extrapolate that accordingly. I want to do a special shout out to the international audience. I love speaking to this group because you lead with international in terms of your organization, and clearly by the upcoming conferences and all of your work that you have, if you will, a global mission. And I think a lot of my comments will have a bit of a domestic flavor just because I work at the White House and we'll speak with mostly kind of domestic examples, but I don't want you to hear it that way. What I want you to hear is that the issues that we're talking about, even with specific domestic examples, apply to the globe and apply to the key point, which is super obvious, but we always state it, is that a global pandemic requires a global response. And we as a Biden administration are working on that on a daily basis with all kinds of international partners and partnerships and things like that. But one of the key lessons learned from this pandemic, which again is super obvious, but we need to continue to remind ourselves, is that you can't go it alone when you're responding to any type of infectious diseases outbreak. It really doesn't make sense with globalization and travel and things like that. You can't just close your borders and hope that an infection's not going to spread. That's just not an option. But what we do know as a fundamental principle of infectious disease is that if you can stop or contain an outbreak very early on in the process, and you can prevent that exponential growth phase that outbreaks tend to go through, you can achieve essentially you can achieve a much better outcome than if you wait and if you take your time and if you try to hunker down and close your borders or whatever other strategy, instead of being incredibly forward leaning. That process